Hello, I'm Tilly, a dog behaviourist down the southeast of England, and I do home visits. Today we're talking about rescue dogs. So this is really like your first week to couple of weeks. Yeah, I've done kind of choosing your dog, choosing the centre, and also the first day. The first day is very important, and it is different from your first week. Okay, so if you haven't got your dog yet and you're about to, you haven't done the first day, definitely go and listen back to that one first before this one. So this is just your first week of owning the dog. Um, so this is where you're going to get into things like routines. Okay, so try and make it predictable for your dog. It helps them settle a lot better if they know what's coming. Like I'm fed at 9, walk at 10, that kind of thing. Yeah. So keep a routine going. This is where after a couple of days you can slowly start weaning them onto whatever food that you want from what they were on previously. Yeah, if you make a change too fast, especially with the stress of moving, you're likely to get diarrhea and things like that. So make the change as smooth as possible. Take a week or two really with the change. As far as food's concerned, I always advise just go for whatever the highest quality you can afford. Yeah, so it could be raw, it could just be a high quality biscuit. Yeah, so whatever you can afford, and obviously check for allergies and things like that. But different dogs seek different things as well. So you can do your research on that. I don't want to go into nutrition or anything, but don't feel guilty if you can't afford raw and something like that because it can rack up really quick. High quality biscuit is still pretty good. So the next thing is kind of like living with your dog, yeah? Exercise is really, really important. Again, unless it's a very young puppy or a very, very old dog, you want to be exercising your dog as much as possible because it will help them calm down and de stress. The biggest problem for our dogs is that they are not getting enough exercise. A lot of breeds we have now are, they're from old working breeds, which are meant to be running all day. Yeah, so even an hour's exercise often doesn't cut it for these dogs. So, if you've got the time, especially that first week or 2 weeks, exercise, exercise, exercise. Yeah, it's just going to help them settle in a lot more and de stress. So make sure you're doing that. And we want to start setting up the kind of relationship with your dog now. Okay, so that means using lots of treats and things like that. So calling their name, getting them to come to you, things like that. I still wouldn't be going up to your dog if he's sitting anywhere or if he's not interested in being stroked. Don't put any pressure on. If he's coming up to you, that's fine. Maybe give him a stroke. If he moves away, that's also fine. Yeah, he's going to takes about 12 weeks for dogs to truly settle into their new environment. So don't worry about that. Just take it nice and slowly. Don't put pressure on. I would still enforce some rules. Okay, we don't want to just give the dog kind of free rein. Remember, you've just brought a predator into your home, and it's very likely you don't know it. It's very likely that the rescue centre doesn't know it. Okay, for all you know, it could have strong guarding issues. So try and avoid these moments. No sofas, no upstairs, no beds. Okay, definitely not any beds. I think it was a couple of years ago, someone was actually killed by their rescue dog in her bed. Okay, that's how serious it can get. She hadn't had it long and it was sleeping up in her bed. She didn't know it very well, and it killed her. So we've got to be very aware of this kind of thing. Um, the only time I would say maybe bedroom is appropriate is if the dog hasn't come from something like a kennel situation where it is used to being alone, if it might be a rehome where it slept in the previous owner's bedroom, okay? And in this case, you would get away with it, but I would still use a crate or a pen in the bedroom, definitely not your actual bed, and that's very last resort. We want as soon as possible for the dog to know his place is downstairs, nice and cosy. You could make a crate or a pen or just a room, whatever the dog's comfortable with. Some like crates, some don't. Okay, and I mean crate like with an open door as well. So don't just stuff your dog in, shut the door and hope for the best. It's up to the dog what they like best. Some like hiding, some like open. But I would keep that going for at least the first week to couple of weeks, and two reasons again. One because you don't know if it resource guards. So if you're on the sofa and it resource guards where it sleeps, it could end up giving you a nip. So we don't want that. And also, sofas and things should be a treat. They should be a privilege for your dog. Yeah, it's kind of like a trust and respect thing. We want the dog to almost ask permission. how do they do this? Well, they'll come up to you and kind of gaze into your eyes, yeah, rather than just leaping onto the sofa. And then you can be like, right, yeah, come on, up you get. Not the first few weeks. This is just down the line, okay. But that's what I mean by asking permission, okay. And we want to start building up a bond. So if your dog is very, very outward going and happy, yeah, you can do some sort of sits and lie downs and stuff like that. If they're not and they don't want to know, that's absolutely fine and that's absolutely normal. I wouldn't really be trying to do that unless the dog is engaging with me. I would just be kind of calling it and feeding it, high value food or even its own biscuit, and using it on walks as well to get up that bond and get the dog listening. I wouldn't be testing out the dog. Okay, so what do I mean by this? So obviously, rescue dogs have got a past, a history, and they could have behavioural problems. So they could be dog aggressive. They could guard food. So I like to obviously know about this, but I do not test this out in the first few weeks. I establish the relationship. I want the dog to listen to me and basically take command from me. Yeah, I'm the leader of the dog and I want to establish that. What I don't want to do is, if the dog's sleeping, put my hand on it. If the dog's eating, put my hand on it. And I don't really want to introduce it to other dogs in the first week either. Yeah, might be good to just go somewhere and see, how they react to a dog from a distance. Are they bothered? Are they not? But I don't want to be testing that out yet. I'd like to leave it at least a week, and then we can start testing the waters, on whether it's got any of these issues. So I always advise lots and lots of chew toys and things like that, which is great. But I'd be very careful about chew toys that are actually toys and not food, because food can disappear, so you can't guard it essentially. So something like a pig's ear, it is very high value, so I'd definitely be giving it to the dog and then leaving, okay, because if they've got guarding issues, that is one thing a lot of dogs guard. Even if they've got no problems at all, a lot of dogs will growl at you because they've got something like that. But I'd like to leave it. It's eaten, right, it's gone, it's forgotten. Something like when you use Kongs, which are great because you can fill them full of wet food, you've got to be aware that the dog may guard it. Okay, so if you do go down the line of like licky mats and Kongs, make sure that when you go to pick it up, the dog isn't near you. So either in another room, what would be good is just like, throw a handful of biscuits out the other room. Right, the dog's gone. Okay, now I can pick it up safely to wash it and whatever you want to do, refill, etc. But do not go for a confrontation. Okay, take it really slow, basically. The other thing I didn't talk about was first say was other animals that you might have in the house as well. Right, so if you do have other dogs in the house, the first thing that would be good to do is go out for a walk together. Yeah, parallel walk, meet on neutral ground, no face to faces, just a parallel walk. As long as you can, absolutely brilliant. And then you can kind of get them to have a sniff and things like that. The rescue centre should tell you if the dog is aggressive or not in that respect as well. So that they usually know. Other animals in the house, particularly things like cats and small animals, could take longer. Some dogs absolutely fine. So in the first week, that is something that I would be testing out. I would be getting the dog on a lead, yeah, and then leading it out. So if I've got animals in the guarding, like a hutch or something like that, I'd be leading the dog out to have a glance and seeing what's going on. The same if I had a cat, the dog would be on a lead and then a glance to see what's going on. If the dog isn't responding, as in it's not bothered, yeah, don't take that for granted. So for your first week or so, yeah, week 2, 3, keep the dog on a lead around these animals, just because it may be that the dog isn't interested at that point. It may be that the dog suddenly wants to play but might play too rough. It may be that the small animal suddenly moves very fast and it hasn't up until this point, and the dog goes to lunge. You need to go through all the different triggers of that animal before you can trust it off lead. And to be honest, I like to go at least a month really before I trust a new dog with one of my smaller animals, and even with my own dogs. So if you're going out and you've just got a rescue dog, don't leave it with any of your animals. Okay, keep them separate, keep the dog separate, keep them all separate. It should not be loose with any new, with anything new like that, because you don't know what's going to happen. You've got to really take safety first. If the dog is reactive, this is different. It's very difficult with dogs that are reactive to a dog in house. That's kind of down to the rescue centre. It's not a quick fix, and it's very, very hard because you don't want to have two different dogs living separate lives in the house. Smaller animals are a lot easier because you can usually chuck them out. Yeah, so you can usually chuck the smaller animal away from the dog, either in a separate room or the garden, or whatever, and it's a lot easier to manage. And then you need to start bringing them down to introduce it to the dog in kind of bite-sized chunks, really, with the dog on a lead, muzzled if necessary, a small animal or cat in a basket, yeah, and quite far away so that the dog is getting used to it. That's kind of what you need to do. So that's what I would address or start to address on the week one. Everything else that involves confrontation, I wouldn't be doing, to be honest, because you don't know the dog and you haven't set up a relationship. So the dog might well have something like guarding issues, but as long as you establish the relationship correctly, it probably won't ever come out. If you let the dog kind of do what it wants, treat the house like soft play, run up and down the stairs, have absolutely no rules, high excitement, jumping up, and let's just throw kind of barking and not listening in there as well for good measure. If it's doing all of that and then it's got a problem, that problem is going to escalate so much faster because it's just got no respect for you. Yeah, we've got to have the dog coming in respectful. It really is important. And most dogs, when they come into a new environment, they are more respectful, okay, because they're kind of finding your feet. You don't go around a stranger's house and start jumping on the sofa or taking advantage. But maybe after, a month or so, you're kind of like helping yourself to stuff in the fridge because you're all friends. The dogs are the same, okay? They always come in kind of low and respectful, and they work their way up the pecking order, testing out boundaries and basically seeing what they can get away with. Dogs are hardwired to push boundaries to see what they can get away with. They can't help it. It's not a character trait and it's not anything nasty. They just can't help it. So you've got to be right there to say, no, here is the boundary and this is what I expect from you. You're going to have a dog that still loves you and everything like that, but they're not looking for a best buddy. They're really not. Yeah, they're looking for a strong leader to keep them safe and their security. And it's going to mean that any problems they do have are going to melt away a lot faster than if you just let the dog completely rule the roost and do what they want. Yeah, you can still give affection to your dog and things like that, but this is really, really important. Like I said, they're not looking for a best friend. They're looking for kind of like a parental figure. So see it like that, as you would see your own parental figure or idol and things like that. So that's just important to keep that in mind, really. Um, but that concludes our kind of first few weeks, really. And then when you're, you know, after a couple of weeks, you want to test out whether it's got guarding issues and things like that. So for that, I would do stuff like I would feed it with a couple of biscuits in its bowl on the lead, where I can grab the lead here and potentially turn its head. And then I'd kind of like stroke it on the bum and things like that, or maybe give it a nudge just to see what it does. Okay, so that's what I mean by testing out. So very, very lightly and not too confrontational. Make sure you set up the relationship first. And again, with other dogs, if it's not paying much attention to other dogs outside, then I would get a bit closer and things like that. If I am worried, I always muzzle the dog. It just takes the teeth out. There's not much harm a dog can do to another dog with a muzzle on. And then I'd start kind of introducing it to dogs, nose to bum, never faces, and gradually seeing what's going on and getting used to be trusting the dog. Yeah, putting it through these kind of paces and these kind of tests. But that basically concludes your rescue dog. So just take it nice and slow, really. And any big problems you do have, you know, if it does have resource guarding, it does have dog aggression, you would need to get a behaviourist in for a home visit to work with your dog, because there are a lot of techniques that need to be shown. If you follow me on TikTok or Facebook, things like that, I've got a lot of videos where I show real techniques and what I'm doing, so go and check those out. Pulling, recall, that kind of thing. Recall, you do want to start training with your rescue dog as well. Proper recall can take about a year, so again, take it nice and slow. Make sure you're always, winning with your dog. Pulling on the lead as well can take a little bit of time. Make sure your dog isn't pulling. But yeah, so this is just kind of getting to know your dog, really, and getting it into the family. And then you're away. Yeah, like I said, any big problems you would need to go to behaviourist, but fingers crossed that they don't have any of those, and then when they're settled in, you can, you know, enjoy your lives together. Go down the beach, go down the pub, have experiences together, and yeah, enjoy each other. But well done for taking on a rescue dog. It's always a good thing. There's a lot that need homes, um, and yeah, have a good life.
If you're interested in more videos or stuff that I do, I am on TikTok. I usually put my TikTok videos also on Facebook and Instagram, so just search Fawn Dog for those. And the main website is fawndog1to1dogtraining.co.uk. Thanks for listening, guys.